Welcome back to the channel. Over the last few months, I've spent time in a few major U.S. cities. I've been to Atlanta, I've been to Chicago for ASCO. Many of you have watched my 2-hour video that's on this channel, and I've spent a lot of time here in San Francisco where I live and work. And one thing struck me, the difference between these metropolitan areas, and I think it's worth talking about, and it speaks to, I think, the absolute mismanagement that is San Francisco, the poor governance that is San Francisco. So let's start off right off the bat. You're going to say, well, if you've been to all those cities, why do you choose to live in San Francisco? Well, one, I work here, so it's a little bit hard to live elsewhere when you work here. Number two, I think San Francisco has the best natural beauty of any of these cities. There's no doubt about it. The terrain, the landscape is better in San Francisco than Chicago, which I love, but is completely pancake flat. And Atlanta, which also is lacking a little bit, unless you drive a fair bit outside the city to get to some interesting terrain. San Francisco's got it all. We've got hills, we've got the bay, we've got the ocean, we've got the best biking, the best hiking, I think, of all of these three areas. But what they have that we don't is actual leadership that isn't incompetent. That's what they've got going for them. They've got competent leadership. See, San Francisco, if it didn't have natural beauty, if it was as flat as a pancake, and if it had as bad winters as Chicago, would be uninhabited. I'm pretty confident it would be uninhabited because the people who run the government would have run it so poorly that everyone would have left. The only reason that despite the incompetence, there's anyone who still lives here is that it has this natural beauty and this natural draw. I think that's the secret to San Francisco. Let me tell you about the other cities. I was in Chicago for ASCO, and it was remarkable what the downtown has become. I, of course, lived in Chicago for 7 years. People know I did my medical school at the University of Chicago. I lived in Hyde Park back then. Then I moved up to Streeterville for my residency at Northwestern. The downtown area, the River Walk, is spectacular. You're out there at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, any night of the week, and you're seeing families out there, people from all walks of life. There's restaurants, there's shops. It's immaculately clean. There's great infrastructure they built down the river. The walk is spectacular. It really reminded me of how gorgeous a city Chicago is and why Chicago in the, I wouldn't say peak summer, but just around this time, the spring, summer, is a spectacular place to go and visit. I enjoyed my time there. I even went by my old stomping grounds, Northwestern, and then I wanted to say hello to the program director who I know well, Ashish Didwania. He was the assistant program director, I think, when I was a resident there. He's become the program director, and I learned that he was retiring. And when I went in there, they said, oh, hey, young man, when did you finish our program? And then they said, was it 2017, 2016? I said, no, not quite. I finished in 2012. And they said, oh my God, no one's around from that time period. Everyone from that time period is gone. I said, okay, great. Well, sorry about that. I didn't think it was that long ago. But Northwestern Hospital is actually, I always thought it was a spectacular hospital in terms of how it looks and also in terms of the residency I got. I think it was a great training ground. You really saw a very diverse cross-section of people in Chicago, and it's a really great facility to train in. I was glad to have trained there. Chicago, summertime, superb. Downtown, superb. Restaurants were great. Service was great. Some of the more popular restaurants had waits. Of course, it was ASCO, so all the industry people bought up all the good restaurants, as they do, so that they can continue the propaganda stream that is ASCO, the American Society of Clinical Oncology Conference, which is focused primarily on disseminating advertisements for the pharmaceutical industry and at a very distant second, educating doctors on anything actually useful. All right, let me talk about Atlanta. Atlanta, I had the pleasure of staying very close to the Ponce City Market, which is sort of a walkable area within what I thought was an unwalkable city. But when you get the Ponce City Market and you've got that beltway that they've constructed from a former Rails to Trails project, I think, you've got a lot of restaurants and shops that are walkable. The service in Atlanta was through the roof good. I mean, when you go to a restaurant, when you go to a bar, the service is spectacular. The food was great in Atlanta. The cost of everything in Atlanta was terrific. I had gone there a few months earlier. The weather was perfect. I think it was really gorgeous weather in Atlanta. I didn't go there in the peak summer, so forgive me that. I don't think I want to be there in the peak summer. But just a terrific city and really diverse. And I think one way it's different than Chicago, of course, is in Chicago, there's a lot of diversity, a lot of people of different stripes. But there is a lot of segregation. As somebody who's spent a lot of time on the south side of Chicago, the south side is extremely segregated compared to the north sides and the more affluent suburbs in the north and past Evanston. In Atlanta, I felt like it was both diverse and there was a lot of mixing, that the diversity was there in every sort of block and every sort of region of the city. I could be wrong, but that was my impression from having gone to restaurants and spent some time in the downtown area there. Also terrific. Now let's turn it to San Francisco. Our downtown is just terrible, just so terrible in comparison. I literally would never want to go over there. There was a conference in town here, and a colleague of mine from Curacao. By the way, I gave those 4 lectures in Curacao last year. I might be back again this year. We were discussing what that would look like if I would go back and give a lecture series on clinical appraisal, which I'll put out on this channel. This colleague is staying here for a conference, and he is saying that, it's terrible outside his hotel. And it is terrible. I never go there. I don't want to meet anyone for a restaurant there. I don't even want to be seen there. I don't want to go to that nice IKEA, because the moment you step outside, you're stepping in feces, and you wish it were a dog's feces. That's it. When you step in feces and you think, I hope this is a dog's feces, the city is mismanaged. They need to clean the shit off the sidewalk. Okay, that's a simple goal for a city, to have it be clean and safe. All the shops have moved out of downtown because no one wants to go there. That speaks to mismanagement. That speaks to government leaders who are incompetent. I saw that San Francisco, the government leaders voted that Vietnamese should be a recognized language in the city and be an official San Francisco language. And I forget, they changed the threshold with which a language would be an official language from, I believe, 10% to 5%. You could fact check me on that, but frankly, you shouldn't, because who gives a fuck? It's literally the dumbest thing any municipality could be spending their time doing, trying to define in a city what are the official versus unofficial languages. You can speak whatever language you want in any U.S. city. The fact that the government is spending time voting to make Vietnamese an official language, rather than trying to solve the actual problems, which is the problem of the fact that downtown is a hellhole and you wouldn't want to go there. Now, of course, I said in a prior video, the neighborhoods are still good. I suspect that's despite the incompetent leadership of the city and not because of the incompetent leadership. But the downtown is terrible. If you go to Chicago downtown compared to San Francisco downtown, or Atlanta downtown compared to this downtown, it is really night and day. And I think that is just absolutely a terrible indictment. Meanwhile, I noticed something. There are many streets in San Francisco where there is street cleaning for a certain day and a few hours. And they've got all the ticketing trucks ready to go the moment it's Tuesday at noon on that street and street cleaning. I'm not sure they're cleaning the street, but they are ticketing the hell out of anyone who's still parked there. Because that's what San Francisco does. They're not actually taking their billions of dollars in budget, which I believe is more than Denmark taxes people per capita, and using that budget to providing good services. No. They're squandering that budget, and they want to keep making more money by ticketing people. What they don't ticket is, of course, shitting on the sidewalk, because you can't ticket somebody who doesn't have any money. So they ticket people who do have money. I received a ticket for not turning my wheels enough on a sloped road, and the road apparently was at 3% grade. First of all, as a cyclist, I know grade pretty well. I'm suspicious it's even a 3% grade. It was a very shallow grade. Second of all, ticket me for not turning my wheels, an incompetent thing to do. I mean, obviously, in the modern car, I suspect that it actually, maybe in the old cars of 1960, the car would have occasionally rolled down the street. I suspect that never happens in the last few years, and ticketing people for not turning their wheels is the dumbest thing. It literally is a policy that doesn't make sense. It's based on a bygone era, and it's just a way to make revenue, which is really what they want, to get more money, take more money, so they can squander it with their incompetence. That's the San Francisco secret. If they didn't have, of course, the beautiful weather and the temperate weather. Let's talk about temperate. It's June now, and I see all these news stories about people who are hot. You know who's not hot? None of us in San Francisco. We're not hot because the daytime highs are still a lovely 65 to 70 degrees, and the nighttime lows are in the high 50s, so you can sleep with your window open and get a cool breeze. It's naturally air conditioned, and it never gets too hot, and the sun is terrific today. It's another beautiful day in San Francisco. We don't get 100-degree days in San Francisco. I've never experienced that, and I suspect they're extremely rare. That's what San Francisco has going for it. I sometimes suspect that in a world prior to air conditioning, one of the main draws of the city, as opposed to surrounding climate, is that it's actually the cool place. And that's because of some geographic quirks that it actually juts out of the ocean, and the surrounding region is a slightly higher elevation, and as the high pressure builds up there, it actually pulls the marine layer in over the city. Okay, so it's got that going for it. I think it's very interesting when you compare and contrast these different cities and you realize that you can have all the natural advantages you want in the world, but when you have governance that's more focused on whether or not Vietnamese should be an official or unofficial language of the city than it is about whether or not you should step in shit, that's when you've derailed. And San Francisco is the pinnacle of a derailed governance system. And then you say, oh, you should vote for the good candidates. You can do that, you know. We like to do that. There's not that many of them. There are a few sensible people running for office, but they're outcompeted by the idiots who are running the things. Okay, so, and you're also going to say, how come you don't move away? Well, that's a tougher issue because, you know, you have to have a certain university job and the university has to be a certain caliber so that you get good people to work with. And it's not that, like, professor jobs are just growing on trails and stuff. And so when you're a tenured professor, it's very difficult, I think, to move in that respect. And actually, I do like the natural beauty a lot. So how you gonna pull me away from that? All right, since I rode bike and all sorts of things. All right, if you like this video, you know what to do. Yeah, it's a little hot under the lights with your criticism. Okay, I know what you're going to say in the comments. If you like this video, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment, leave a message below. I'll be back with more videos about different subjects, including this subject, but other subjects too. And I'm actually going to do something different. If you watch this video, you'll see that I'm going to wear the exact same shirt in the next video. That's because I'm going to record multiple videos at the same time and set them to drop on different dates. So this way, you don't go a long period of time where I don't give you a video because I'm busy and I'm doing other things like running a research lab and seeing patients in clinic and those kinds of things. So until next time.